you're interested in printing cash online, or you're just interested in AI like me, then these huge updates are probably right up your alley. Starting with some pretty significant updates with Midjourney. Now you can see I've got a very creative prompt here, just a goat in a field. And if I actually go ahead and upscale one of these images, and then just give it a few seconds to actually upscale, you'll see that we get a ton of new controls below the image. Now, some of these tools have been out for a little while, but I figured now is the best time to mention them. These arrow keys on the bottom actually expand the image in a particular direction. So if you wanted to see more to the right or to the left, up or down, you could click the corresponding button to actually expand the image. I can actually go ahead and do all four directions so that you can see what it looks like right now. So here you go. You can see that we're starting to get some results, and it essentially just adds an extra half to the image that you started with. So for this one, we panned it up, I believe. And so we've got the original image, and then it added in some additional sky. Here's one that's panned down. You can see it panned to the right and to the left. It essentially adds more detail to your image. Now, this is super useful because it actually prints new pixels and maintains the original quality of the image. So normally Midjourney limits their images to about 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, but this one actually prints new pixels onto the image and keeps the original quality of what you started with. So being curious, I had to see how far we could actually take this. And I decided to pan out this cactus image as far as we could possibly go. So I just kept taking it over to the right. You can see that the further to the right we got, the more chaotic it actually became until it finally stopped me out after many image expansions. Now I'm gonna put the full image on screen so you can see how high quality it is. And it definitely did get more chaotic the closer I got to the edge, but I was surprised with the amount of detail and quality that it maintained because it's always printing on new pixels instead of just reformatting the image. So if I stitched all of these panned out goat images together, we'd actually get a really high quality result. Besides that, you'll also see these new zoom tools that we have below the image. So these allow us to zoom out from what we currently have. So if I choose something like the 1.5, or let's do the 2x zoom out, it will actually print an entirely new image and just maintain what we currently have as the center focal point. So let's just give this a second to generate. You can kind of see how it's keeping the original image there in the middle, and it's printing a bunch of new data all around it. So here's our completely new image. They added a bunch of flowers and a bunch of sky and extra details all around our original image. In my opinion, this doesn't look half bad. Now, again, being curious, I had to see how far we could take this. So I started by taking this cherry blossom tree, vintage parchment paper image, and I just kept zooming it out to see what it would look like. And honestly, the first few results actually look really cool. I think that that one looks good. This one also looks pretty good, but eventually it just kind of kept repeating the same pattern. You can still see our little original graphic there in the middle. And it just kept repeating the same exact pattern over and over. So I tried again with this cherry blossom in the water. And again, you can see that the first few iterations of zooming out actually look really good. We get some really nice detail, some reflection from the tree branches. But eventually it just starts distorting and it becomes really hard to tell what's going on in the image. And eventually we're left with something like this where you can't even see the original image or even the main idea there in the center. Now, another tool that I haven't talked about yet on the channel is the Vary Region tool. This allows us to essentially just select a portion of the image that you want to replace. And here we could just drag over the goat, and we can basically regenerate just that portion of the image. So in this case, it will ideally leave everything else the same, and it will hopefully give us a new goat in a field, or maybe it'll just replace it with a new field. We'll just have to see. So there we go, some new goats in the field. Now, these are a little bit more questionable results, but from my experience, being able to use this Vary Region tool is super useful if there's errors or defects in your image, especially if you're planning on trying to sell the images. We could try it again. We could select the sky in the background of this photo and say birds flying far in the distance and see what kind of results we get. So here we go. We got some good results. I think I'm gonna like number 3 the most. We can upscale it and see exactly what we got. There we go. So now we have some birds flying in the sky. This very region tool can be super useful for adding or removing details that you do or don't like in your images, especially if you're planning on trying to sell the images. We can choose to correct any aspects of the images before we use the new upscale tools. So we now have a 2x and a 4x upscaler, which can make them either 2000 or 4000 pixels wide. Absolutely huge. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this because I think I like this image the most, and we're gonna go ahead and do a 4x upscale. Now this upscaling process does take quite a while, but the results are absolutely worth it. Again, especially if you're planning on selling the images. I should mention that the zoom out effect does not actually add pixels to the image. So it will still be the same 1000 by 1000 pixels. You won't actually get any new pixels, which is why we do have to use the new upscaling feature to actually make it a higher quality image. Okay, I think the image is finally done. It took about 3 or 4 minutes to fully upscale, and it doesn't look too different as of right now, but if I open it in the browser, here we go. We can see that if we zoom in, we have way more detail in the image. We can zoom in super close and we still have really sharp, clean detail, and we don't get all of the distortion that we get with the other size images. For example, here's our other image, and the more I zoom in, it just becomes pixelated and grainy. Versus this one, I can zoom in and I still have really clean lines. I'll put the comparisons on screen so you can see them even better. What this means for selling AI art is that we not only have way more control over the quality of the image, but we also have control over the mistakes that the AI is making using the Very Region tool. So this can really eliminate a lot of the need for a tool like Photoshop or Photopea. The final Midjourney feature is called Tune, and it basically allows us to save a style in Midjourney to reference over and over again without having to type in all of the words and kind of hope that it gets the right style. So let me show you how this actually works. What we want to do is start by typing in /tune, and then it'll want a prompt. Now, for me, I really like this image that I was able to generate. You can see it right here. And it looks pretty similar to some of the best-selling images, at least on Etsy, like these. It has a very similar art style and aesthetic. So if I wanted to save it as a prompt, I could copy down my whole prompt, put it in the tune option, and hit enter. From here, it'll ask me if I want to change the style directions. I don't need to. I'll also leave it in default mode, and I'll just hit submit. It also does take 0.3 of your GPU credits, so that's worth noting depending on your plan. And again, back to the waiting. So then it will tell us that our style tuner is ready. So we just have to click on this link, and it will open up this web page for us to start selecting images that we want to include in the style pack. So as we scroll through here, you can kind of see if we want to maybe include this one. Maybe we don't like this style as much, so we'll include this one. And we can just go through and select the different styles of images that we like or don't like. You don't have to select them either, so you can leave it blank. If neither of them meet your criteria, you can just go through and select the different styles that you want to include. Now, you can do them in packs like this, or you can pick from your grid. So if you like specific individual images, then you can go through and select the individual ones just like so. Then you will have a style code down at the bottom. So the more images, kind of the better I think that you'll get a result. At least that's what I've found so far. So the more images you're able to add to the style, the more it kind of helps it. And then we can just come down here and select copy here. And this will allow us to copy and use this style. So back in Midjourney, what I can do is I can type out /imagine, and then I could say something like a goat in a field in a vintage style painting. And then I can add -- style and not stylize or -- this has to be -- style, and then post our style code, and we'll see if we can get a good result. And we'll also change the aspect ratio so that it's a little bit wider. Okay, and here we go. So you can see we've got these goats in a field. It's maintained a lot of the kind of grungy textures from the vintage paintings, a lot of the muted colors, and I think it's done a pretty good job of replicating a similar style and feel in this image, especially considering the prompt. So just by using these style codes, you can actually save a lot of data and time just by using them instead of typing out all of the words or having to remember exactly what words to use. Now, another pretty useful tip if you're interested in this style feature is to come over to the actual Midjourney server and look under the style and tuner forum, and you'll see a bunch of different people here sharing their different styles. So for example, they'll share images that they were able to create using style random. And you can see that, for example, right here, this person came up with an awesome seed that created some super good looking images. So I just copied this exact style and I went over and created some of my own images, and you can see that this exact style looks pretty good for this style art. So I'll put it up on screen so you can see it. Here's another example with a cold, snowy mountain range. You can see it's really trying to emulate that same art style for any prompt that we put in. This is a super important feature, especially for those of us looking to sell the images, considering we'll need to replicate the same style over and over to make a sellable collection of images. This new style tune feature mixed with the crazy upscaler makes a pretty lethal combination. For example, if you're selling digital downloads or print-on-demand artwork like I talk about here on the channel, these 2 to 4x upscaled images can fit directly onto canvases without having to use Photopea or Photoshop. For example, in Printify, if I select the canvas, I can literally just drag in that goat artwork that we just made, and if I give it a couple seconds to upload, you can see that even after I completely scale it up to fit the canvas, we still have a super high quality version. So we're over 200 DPI, which is plenty to get a super crispy print. This is on the 16 by 20 canvas, which isn't the biggest, but considering how big it is, honestly, you could go up to the biggest side canvas and probably still be fine. And like I said, with the Vary Region tool, if there was a big mistake on the image, you could just use it to cut it out and generate something else. Let me know down below if you wanted an updated video on this AI artwork business model that I've talked about before on the channel. And while we're still on the topic of print on demand here, Printify is actually rolling out some AI features of their own. If you've been on Printify, you may have noticed this new AI image generator that is currently in beta. Now, to be honest, this feature has been out for a while. I just haven't mentioned it since it is in beta, and a lot of the early images are too small to use, and it could use a little bit of work. But as it has been developing and getting better, I figured now's a great chance to talk about it. Now, I do have to use a smaller product like an ornament, since the images that it does generate are quite small, but I think this is kind of fitting considering the time of year. So if I click on the image generator, you can see a bunch of the past images that I've generated down there, as well as some examples. And right here, we can just type in the prompt, or we can hit try an example. So we'll just find a good example. Maybe we'll do this one, and we'll just hit generate images. Give it a few seconds to load. So there you go, some decent results here. Then all we'd have to do is just pick one of these designs and it'll upload it to our product. Now, I think I actually got a better pixel penguin the other day, so I liked these a little bit more. You can see that it'll upload it directly to our ornament. The only downside to using the Printify image generator at the moment is the size of the images. So while this is a really cute design, it's too small to actually sell without there potentially being issues and low quality on their final product. We can go ahead and try it again and just see if we can get something else. It is pretty quick, which is one of its best advantages right now. We can go ahead and try this other prompt, and you can actually see these are pretty interesting. So they're not bad images. I think that the only issue with them right now is that they're just lower quality. Now, one of the best benefits to this is that Printify is designing this image generator specifically for people who want to sell their designs on products. If we got even a little bit closer to what Midjourney or DALL-E can do inside of Printify, I think almost any seller would be happy. Since I use Printify for my own personal business, I will continue to keep you guys up to date as well. Now, in the same realm of selling AI images, we have some huge news regarding the class action lawsuit that was filed against Stability and Midjourney. Basically, the exact thing that I said in the last video ended up happening, where the entire lawsuit basically got thrown out. The lawsuit specifically against Midjourney and DeviantArt was completely thrown out, only allowing one of the plaintiffs, who had filed 16 pieces of her artwork with the Copyright Office, is able to go after Stability AI for potential copyright infringement, suing them for damages. This is a pretty big W for AI images overall, and a pretty big L for the artists who were involved. This basically means that any future lawsuits that have similar accusations are also likely to just get thrown out, unless the final plaintiff is able to miraculously receive a ton of damages from the 16 works of art that she claims have been infringed upon. Overall, this is very bullish AI art news in general, and as I talked about in the last video, it's becoming more of a tool that artists and business owners can use instead of this competitive entity that artists are getting mad at. But I am curious to hear your thoughts on this down below. A huge thanks to Printify for sponsoring this video and making my entire business possible. I hope you enjoyed, and as always,